But so flipping the page, we're going to go to the other side. We're going to go on, it's a little bit easier to talk about these teams because of the teams that were ranked so high at the beginning of the year. And I mean, first we got to look at Clemson. Clemson started off fourth in the country to start the year, and now they're unranked. Cade Klubnik had the second best odds to win Heisman before week one. They started the season with the fifth best odds to win the national championship, which is plus 900. They were the favorite to win the ACC championship, and it just folded for them. Cade Klubnik had a poor start to the season when they lost their first 3 out of 4 games in which Klubnik threw an interception in all of them. The team was ranked 119th out of 136 in passing yards allowed per game, so their defense didn't really play well. But they were ranked 63rd in points per game. And going into the season, I remember we were discussing how Cade Klubnik was going to be a Heisman frontrunner. And 28.7 points per game against some of the teams that ACC plays is just not enough to get it done as a Heisman contender. They ended up finishing 7-5 and 4-4 in conference in the ACC, which the champion of the ACC didn't even make it to the playoff this year. Some of the other losses came to Georgia Tech, 3-9 Syracuse, SMU, and then eventually the ACC champion Duke. But so next for the Clemson Tigers will be the Pinstripe Bowl. They were bowl eligible this season, and they're going to play Penn State. But Penn State, let's go to Penn State. Penn State started second in the country, and a lot of people thought they were going to win the Big Ten, and now they're unranked. They are playing Clemson in the bowl game, but Drew Aller had the 6th best odds to win the Heisman before week one. They started the season as the 3rd highest odds to win the national championship. They were above Clemson on that list. James Franklin gets fired after their loss at home to Northwestern earlier in the season. And Aller had a season-ending injury in that same game and only ended up playing 6 games for them. They were ranked 89th in the country in total yards per game. And, they ended up finishing 6-6 and 3-6 in conference. A couple losses. One of the big losses was to that barn burner game against UCLA. That was coming off that loss to Oregon in overtime, and it kind of seemed like Oregon beat them twice in that overtime game, because when they went to UCLA, they totally just fell apart. And this was a team that was looked at as one of the best teams in the country going into the year, and they'll be playing in the Pinstripe Bowl against Clemson. But so going forward, let's talk about LSU. LSU has had a lot of their struggles, but they started the season off in the top 10. They were 9th in the country, and now they're unranked. And, there's a lot of news surrounding LSU right now with Lane Kiffin, but it started with Brian Kelly this year. And, Nussmeier, too, who's still on the team, but he eventually got hurt in the middle of the season. But Nussmeier had the 3rd best odds to win the Heisman before week one. And they started the season as the 9th best odds to win the national championship. And then Brian Kelly eventually gets fired after that 49-25 home loss against Texas A&M. Texas A&M is one of those great teams in the SEC this year, but Nussmeier ended up getting hurt and missing the last 4 games with an abdominal injury. But this team was ranked 121st in rushing yards per game, worse than the SEC. They were ranked 108th in points per game. They were ranked 111th in total yards per game, and they ended up finishing 7-5 and 3-5 in conference, with losses to like Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Alabama, and Oklahoma. But they're still bowl eligible, and they play in the Texas Bowl against Houston, which they're underdogs in. So keep them on your radar. Obviously, Lane Kiffin comes into the fold coming next year after they fired Brian Kelly. And, they're going to have to go to Ole Miss next year, and that'll be an interesting game to keep an eye on. Next, let's move on to Florida, which was a team at the beginning of the year that was ranked really high for their previous season. I think a lot of it was kind of wishful thinking that DJ Lagway was going to pick up how well he played at the end of last season. DJ Lagway was had the 10th best odds to win the Heisman before week 1. And they started off the season at 15, and now they're unranked. They're not even bowl eligible. They were tied for 10th best odds to win the national championship. They were tied with Ole Miss and Michigan at that time. DJ Lagway had the most interceptions amongst quarterbacks in the SEC, a guy who many thought was going to be a Heisman this year, and he had the second most in the country. They were ranked 110th in points per game. I mean, Florida going into the season, it was only 2 or 3 games into the season where they lost to USF, a team that is largely out-recruited by them. A lot of the guys who don't end up going to Florida end up going to USF, so a lot of those guys ended up winning that game. They were 110th in points per game with 21. I mean, they ended up finishing the season 4-8 and 2-6 in conference. They lost to that. They had that USF loss, which really kind of threw them off early in the season, and they are not bowl eligible this year. But so moving on to a team that also isn't bowl eligible is South Carolina. Coming into the season, they were ranked 13th, and now they're unranked. Lenore Sellers had the 5th best odds to win the Heisman this year. Going into the season, and they were tied with the 15th best odds to win the national championship. A lot of people were high on South Carolina coming into the year. Sellers was the most sacked quarterback in the SEC this year and was the second most sacked quarterback in the country. And I mean, to flip it backwards, they blew a 30-3 lead against Texas A&M, and they gave up 21 points in the third quarter. They were ranked 119th out of 136 in rushing yards per game. They had essentially no run game. And they were ranked 108th in total yards per game. The offense was not what they had expected it to be coming into the season and what a lot of people expected it to be. Yeah, I mean, they were worse than Florida this year. They finished the season 4-8, but they were 1-7 in conference. Their only win came against Kentucky. So yeah, they're not bowl eligible this year, and I think a lot of people had expected them to be very good going into the season.